Hello, my name is William. Welcome. Today we are looking at a video of a Turkish woman making one of the most fabulous, cute, little bread ovens I've ever seen. She makes this oven on a tree stump. There's a grandchild, playing around her. There's chickens. It's bucolic. It's beautiful. But it's something that you could do if you live in the countryside. It's something you can do if you live in a city. In the city, we'll have to buy the clay, and I'll be talking about that as we look at the video. The bread she makes is, let's just say, nothing to write home about, and the technique is simple. It's like baking in an oven. So it's really for the making of the cob oven that this is worth watching. There's one fabulous detail that I will mention that I've never seen before, and lots of little details that will help you make your oven look beautiful. So with that, let's look at the video. So she's collecting her own clay. If you can, do. If you can't collect your own clay, I live in a city, most of you probably live in cities, then you can buy clay. I'm lucky to live near a big clay store supplying schools and potters. Buy powdered clay. I buy fire clay. That's a kind of clay, very cheap, very common in the ground. Any powdered clay. When you buy powdered clay, you need to mix it with sand to make it so that it won't crack, and to bulk it up. About 1 part clay to 4 parts sand will be more or less the equivalent of what she is getting out of the ground. Here she's bringing up her trunk base, scrap wood if you live in a city, on top of a table will work. To be honest, as you see, we're going to be insulating the wood from the fire with a layer of this clay. So there's the clay she dug. If you get it in a bag from the store, along with sand from the store. Oh yes, for sand, you want a coarse sand actually is better than a smooth sand, coarse sand. She is going to be working with a very wet mix. She is not being careful about the mix, so I'm not going to say the mix is important. Here it can be very, very wet. It's easier to work with when it's wet. And what you're going to see is that because she's not really worrying about the water-clay ratio. And when I say worry, I mean in certain kinds of constructions, we'll see that in some other ovens, you mix the sand and the clay, or the clay and the straw, and you make a ball, and you do a splat test. You drop it from shoulder height to the ground, and you see how it splats. If it goes splat, then it is too wet. If it cracks, it's too dry. If it holds its shape, then it is like Goldilocks's bed. It's like the Goldilocks situation. It's just right. The middle one is just right. Now, I don't know why she puts down the wire there. I can't imagine what it's really doing. It's keeping the clay I don't know, off the sump. Maybe she's going to be able to move this because she's done that, though she's going to end up pushing the clay over the edges. I have no idea. In any case, this is a thick layer of clay and straw, and it will be enough to keep that stump from ever catching fire. She's going over this with a kind of tool that people use when they smooth out cement, smooth out clay. She will have done this many times before. You'll see that beautiful edge she's getting around the side of the clay. You can just use your hand. That's aesthetic. She's not baking on the floor of the oven, so she doesn't actually need it to be that smooth, but it's pretty. Again, this is a very wet clay, and what you're going to see her doing is lighting a fire there to dry out these little clay walls. It is less usual, but there is an oven method where people make strips of clay. You see this especially with tandoor ovens, and make walls like the way some hand-built pots are made. She has done that for this base. This is in contrast to what you're going to be seeing where you're making clumps that she's going to be pressing on a frame. She is using rebar, whether she's had a previous oven that she took apart or that she moved, so this was already bent. We don't know. We don't know. There is a tradition also of making that frame out of green wood and letting it burn out. At this stage, again, she's firming up the base. I've never seen that before. It's very, 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 very clever. Very clever. Make life easier for yourself. When that's dry as it is now, it's going to be able to hold the weight of the walls that she puts on top. Then she's about to add a frame to facilitate making the oven dome. And there you see it. It looks like that's rebar going around, and I think she does have some sticks, some green wood filling in. So that's a mix of green wood and rebar. Then she's putting rebar across the bottom, not the bottom, where she had solidified that wall. Then she has the rebar there. She's going to have fire underneath, and then her pan is going to sit on top of that rebar. So this is not an oven where you're going to get in there with an oven mop and clean out all the embers. Before you bake the bread, we're going to see she's going to have a little bit of ember in there. It's a small oven. You're not firing this with firewood. You're firing it with brush. Even if you live in the city, if you save the prunings from trees, you will, and shrubs, you will get yourself enough firewood to certainly fire one of these ovens at least once. You don't have to be careful. She's not making the perfect dome. It's a little flat back there. The truth is, it's the kind of project that and it's a level of perfection that I could handle. Notice how wet her hands are. Notice how she's working around the clay when she adds it. Her walls are relatively thin, but for what she's doing, that's enough. This oven is full of straw. It's not intended to be retaining the heat for long periods of time. Now that's very important. She has tested to make sure that her pan can fit in the oven. Whenever I make an oven, I test the side. Is it wide enough for the widest cookie sheet I might put in it? Is it tall enough for the tallest bean pot that I might put in it? Very important. There she's just, for aesthetics, she's smoothing out the outside. You get dirty. Don't wear your best. Burning twigs. Now her twigs are clearly very, very, very dry. One match. We can approve of that. We can approve of that. So she's got kindling under, she's got some wood over those rebar lengths that are the floor of her oven. And here she's made this really, really cool oven door. It's really cool. And you can do that for any oven. You don't need to go online or go to a metal fabricator to fabricate yourself a metal door. You see the flames come out the top, lick the top. the way airflow works in these ovens is cold air comes in the bottom. This is the dome. Comes in the bottom, comes up the dome, and then out the top here. This is a basic bread: flour, water, powdered yeast, and salt, and sugar. Salt and sugar. Now remember, she's just made this oven. So this is something where you make it in an afternoon, and you can cook your bread, you can cook your dinner in the evening time. So obviously you could bake chicken in there, you can grill peppers, onions in the embers would be fabulous, baked potato, any kind of a casserole. It's an oven. And I would think of it as an oven, not think of it as, oh, this is a single purpose bread oven. She has a lot of skill the way she handles that and the way she just kneaded it by working it. I think she's put a little oil in the pan, or maybe she's brushed it with water. It said to leave it for an hour. That tells you she's put a lot of yeast in it. And as you will see, she's not particularly concerned with how high this bread rises. Small amount of oil. I think she put a little oil in that plastic pot before we saw it, and that's always good advice. Always good advice. I have some bread rising right now. I have a little oil in the pan. She got a good rise out of that. She's not going to get a big rise out of her final bread. Now look at this part. It's the sort of minimal moving around kneading system. Lots of practice. So she's proofing it again for half an hour. She's leaving it for half an hour. I would, rather than time, I'd prefer to say leave it for half an hour or until the bread starts to rise again. You see how it has spread out. She's dusted flour on top, not sure why. It just clears the sides. We're going to see later that there are still some embers in there. It doesn't say how long it cooks for. You can see the embers. And there she has it. And I'd like to emphasize that when you make a bread like this, it's always the best bread in the world. The best bread in the world is always the bread that you just made, especially in a cute little oven that you just made in your lovely backyard. And a closed crumb bread. Springy, it's beautiful. And it's going to go with the food that she eats it with. It's going to go with her cuisine. Well, thank you very much.